Welcome to this video where we will discuss free radical damage and reactive oxygen species. Now, free radicals have been kind of a buzzword sometimes in health, and a lot of non-conventional individuals and companies they like to talk about free radicals, and they like to prescribe or prescribe the idea where you need to take all this vitamin C or excess supplements, if you will, to destroy or combat the free radical damage. And in some cases that's true. So what this video is about is we're going to talk about of this. First of all, I want to explain what a free radical is, and to do this let's just say we have chlorine gas, and if you're not familiar with kind of chemical annotation, this means that this molecule is in a gas phase. So there's chlorine gas, and there's two of them, so they're kind of connected together. And then if you react it with UV light, so you shine UV light on this chlorine gas, you have a bond like this. You have chlorine and chlorine. What will happen is the UV light will break this bond right here, okay? And then you'll get, let me write this a little bit better here. Let me put this over here so it doesn't confuse you. So here the chlorine gas is connected like that. You shine UV light and it breaks this bond right here. So then you get chlorine with one electron, because there's two electrons. There's one right here and one right here, and they're sharing this bond. So you break it in half, and then you get one electron here, plus you get another of the same type. So you get another chlorine with one electron. Now this is a free radical. Now the problem with free radicals is that they can perpetuate themselves. So if you react this atom right here, this free radical, with another compound, sometimes, like let's just say this compound with an oxygen, I just imagine some kind of compound here, but you react this with this compound. This compound will undergo a chemical reaction, and it will spit out another free radical again. So the free radicals perpetuate themselves. And so that's the problem, is when you get free radicals in your body, they can continue on perpetuating themselves, possibly indefinitely, if you don't have the right mechanisms and things in your body to stop that. Now, free radicals are a common. Free radicals happen all the time in our body, and our one of the processes that we'll talk about is you have, let's say, a mitochondria. Okay. And then you're dumping O2, which is the same thing as this, oxygen, but it's just bonded to oxygen. You breathe in this, and then oxygen gets carried through your binds to hemoglobin, through your red blood cells, diffuses down into the mitochondria, and is converted to H2O. So you have O2 plus 4 electrons goes to H2O. So from when oxygen enters your lungs, all the way down through the bloodstream into the mitochondria, through the electron transport chain and everything, it is reduced down to H2O. It's converted to H2O by adding 4 electrons to this diatomic molecule, molecular oxygen. it's reduced down to water. Through this process, free radicals, or this, a free radical again is just any kind of atom or molecule that has an one pair of electrons. Those are produced during this process, and they are properly taken care of and destroyed by certain mechanisms, and we're going to talk about those. So reactive oxygen species are a class of compounds that are these oxygen radicals. Instead of a chlorine, this was just an example here, but instead of this chlorine example, it's oxygen. So these reactive oxygen species, ROS, are these free radicals that are associated with oxygen, and through this process of the mitochondria, they are produced, but they're taken out. So if they are not taken out, if these ROS species, sorry about that, if these species are not removed, or so they get removed, there's two ways that these can be damaged. If they usually get removed, if they're not removed, they can cause a term that's called oxidative stress. Or another way is if they're in excess or an increased amount. Let's say there's a reperfusion injury that we're going to talk about later, and that will explain more about this concept. But for now, let's just remember that if the reactive oxygen species that are normally produced in the body through this process here, if they are not removed, they can cause oxidative stress to the cells. Or if there's an increased amount of these due to a huge supply of oxygen, that can also cause oxidative stress. So I have here a list of ways that free radicals can be produced. They can be produced by ionizing radiation. Radiation, we've already talked a little bit about this in previous videos, but when you get X-rays, for example, that is ionizing radiation, and you convert. This is an H2O. This is a water molecule. There's millions of these little buggers. They're not little buggers, but there's millions of these water molecules inside your body. Your body is more than 50% water. So when you go take an X-ray, these ionizing radiations, they are breaking this bond, and they are producing a free radical, these hydroxide radicals. You can also get free radicals by enzymatic metabolism. So when enzymes are doing their work, they can create free radicals. You can get it through inflammation. You have leukocytes. Leukocytes are white blood cells that come in and they start taking care of the problem that's causing the inflammation. They produce free radicals during this process. Free radicals. And then NO, which is nitric oxide. Nitric oxide is produced in many cells, and it's a chemical mediator for several different reactions and purposes. And these can be converted to free radicals. So there's many ways that your body can produce free radicals, and it's a normal process to have free radicals inside your body, but there's mechanisms to take care of these free radicals, and we'll talk about those. Here are three categories, or three you know, concepts that need to be explained to help destroy those reactive oxygen species, those free radicals. So superoxide dismutase, they take care of and destroy the reactive oxygen species. Glutathione, which is now these are all produced by our bodies. Glutathione is also inside our cells to help take care of free radicals, so they destroy free radicals. And then endogenous or exogenous. Endogenous means within, and exogenous means without. So either you can take vitamin A, C, and beta carotene. These are all nutrients that will help fight free radicals. But also a good, healthy diet. A good, healthy diet with lots of vegetables and fruits will also have plenty of these inside that will help destroy these free radicals that are a common process as the mitochondria and other parts of our cells work to create energy and ATP and perform their proper function. Now we're going to talk about some ways in which, let me go over here just a bit. We're going to talk about some ways that free radicals can damage our cells. So lipid peroxidation of membranes, cross-linking of proteins, and DNA fragmentation are three main ways by which reactive oxygen species can destroy, cause problems, wreak havoc to the cells. So lipid peroxidation of membranes is this. Inside you have a lipid bilayer, right? I'll just do this. This is a membrane, a cell membrane. It's a bilipid. It's a bilayer, two layers, and they're made of lipids. These little tails here, if we remember from chemistry, you have, let's say you have, carboxylic acid here, and then you have this lipid tail here. You have a double bond here. Okay, this double bond prevents rotation around this bond. That doesn't exist because of the rotation cannot happen because of the double bond. So these reactive oxygen species, or these oxygen free radicals, they attack these double bonds and they mess them up. And when these double bonds are problematic and they're messed up, then this causes a problem in the cell membrane. And when we have problems in the cell membrane, we've talked about some of the problems that can happen. We have an osmotic disequilibrium, if you will. The water comes into the cell. Proteins and nutrients, they can't diffuse back and forth between the inside. Let's say this is inside and this is outside of the cell. They can't diffuse back. So you have problems inside the membrane. And once these membranes are problematic, then that triggers necrosis or certain things that we've talked about before. Another thing is lysosomes. Remember that we talked about in necrosis. Let's say this is a big giant cell here, and this is a lysosome. Sorry, that spelling's bad, but the lysosome is inside the cell here. And if you have problems with this membrane due to the reactive oxygen species that's attacking the double bond in the lipids in the cell membrane or in the lysosomal membrane, if you have problems here in the lysosomal membrane, then these contents will spill out into the cell. These lysosomes contain enzymes. And enzymes convert A to B, or vice versa. A is any kind of compound or molecule, and B is the product, or vice versa. This can go in this direction, or it can go in this direction. Enzymes help this process do it really quickly. More so if it was left to its own devices, this reaction would happen, but it might happen, hours, months, years. If you have an enzyme, it happens really quickly in fractions of seconds, which that's the kind of a response you need if you're going to be a living creature and need to react to your environment. So these enzymes are released and they'll degrade. Some of these are enzymes that degrade stuff. You have proteases, DNAases. You have all these types of enzymes that will eat up, chew up, destroy certain types of molecules within our cell. So then they'll come through here, and let's say this is the nucleus. It will start eating up all these different cell structures. And if you remember from the first couple videos, this process that I just described is necrosis. This is a way that necrosis happens to cells. This is exactly what I explained. The enzymes inside lysosomes get out and they start chewing up the contents of the cell, and then they, furthermore, that they start leaking out of the cell into the extracellular matrix. Let's talk about the cross-linking of proteins. So reactive oxygen species will promote cross-linking of proteins. So inside the cell, you have these little proteins, and they're little strands of amino acids, and that's a little protein, and this is a little protein. Enzymes, by the way, are just proteins. So reactive oxygen species will come in here, and they'll cause these two proteins to stick together. So then now these two proteins don't work. They don't work. So they could be two enzymes that are stuck together that, now the enzymes won't work. And if enzymes don't work, then, that could cause problems with the cell and not performing, not converting A to B or B to A, and that reaction wouldn't happen, which would maybe kill the cell. Or you have structural proteins, or some of these proteins, this little amino acid sequence is a protein, and sometimes the cell releases these out into the extracellular matrix, and that's a signal to this next cell that's over here. That's a signal to this next cell. Let me move down here a little bit. That's a signal to this next cell to, hey, I need you to do this, or I need you to do that. So if this protein, this is a hormone, in this example it's a hormone, if this hormone wasn't produced because of this cross-linking of proteins, let's say this one got attached to another protein, well then this hormone wouldn't work, and then that cell wouldn't get the message. So that would cause problems. Or the reactive oxygen species our last way, can cause DNA fragmentation. So inside the nucleus, you have this inside the cell. It's inside the cell. Reactive oxygen species that's produced and it's not destroyed. It can come inside the nucleus and it can start, let's say this is the DNA, it can start destroying this DNA. It can start causing fragmentation of the DNA. Now there's certain mechanisms that exist inside the cell that can fix some of this DNA. So we have, you know, a DNA strand right here, and it's cross-linked here. It's like a ladder, and it's twisted. It's a double helix, so it's twisted. But this reactive oxygen species will come and it will cleave. It'll cut in half this DNA. Well, there's certain like enzymes and certain proteins that will run along this strand, and they'll say, "Oh, hey, this is cut," and they'll be able sometimes to fix it. They'll be able to find this other end and cleave it and hook it back up. Now, if this enzyme can't hook it back up, it will send a signal out to undergo apoptosis, cell self-destruction. So these reactive oxygen species, if it starts chopping up this DNA, then eventually the cell's going to not be able to fix itself, and it's going to undergo apoptosis. So to recap what we've kind of talked about free radicals and free radicals damage, is a free radical is simply any kind of atom or molecule that has one excess pair of electrons. It has one electron just in its outer shell. And a normal process in cells is mitochondria taking oxygen in our lungs, it getting transferred to mitochondria in all of our cells, and then that is converted by adding 4 electrons to the oxygen to produce H2O, water. Okay. Reactive oxygen species are these free radicals that are oxygen that have oxygen in them. If these reactive oxygen species are not removed when they undergo a normal process, or if they build up too much, then the term is called our cells are under oxidative stress. Ways that our cells undergo oxidative stress is by ionizing radiation, enzymatic metabolism, inflammation, and nitric oxide can turn into these reactive oxygen species. I'm sorry, these are ways that free radicals are produced outside of just normal converting oxygen into H2O and ATP. And these 3 classifications are protective mechanisms in destroying these free radicals: superoxide dismutase, glutathione, and these vitamins. And lastly, these are the ways by which reactive oxygen species can cause injury to our cells. Hope you enjoyed the video. We'll see you in the next one.